years behind me. Our whole lives.
From now on, Deku is the name of my hero!
Pride can be a useful attribute to have. I'd say you certainly have the ability to become a pro hero.
Why did you pick Deku?
He was powerless, but still more heroic than anyone else.
Besides, both your arms are busted up!
It's going to be fine. Victory is the only thing that matters to me. Come at me! So what the hell am I supposed to do? Enjoy that win, Deku. You won't get another. I'm just getting started. Got that? I'm gonna end up the #1 hero no matter what! So come at me with all you've got! You moron!
I can't beat you! Not in a one-on-one fight like this! But I can win!
Now, it's your turn.
Definition aside, there are a myriad of great characteristics one can possess in order to be a hero. But which ones are the most important? What are the 2 golden rules of a hero? According to My Hero Academia, they can be seen in young pupils Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya. That said, before I start, I want you all to think. Which of these characters do you resonate with more? Who would you say is more similar to yourself? Which of these characters do you like more? And more specifically, why do you like them? All that aside, one of my favorite episodes in My Hero, and the most important one for this topic, is from Season 3, Episode 23. In this episode, we finally get to see what really goes on inside of Bakugo's head, and what Midoriya and Bakugo truly think of each other. Bakugo finally lets out his emotions, and Midoriya and Bakugo engage in a heartfelt battle. We come to understand that both of these characters grew up idolizing All Might. Bakugo finally understands that his hero in fact passed on his powers to Midoriya, who was once a powerless child. We would expect these 2 characters to be mortal enemies through the way they treated each other. But through this episode, we found that they are something far greater. Proper rivals, as All Might would say. Bakugo never talks about his feelings, but in this fight, his emotions implode.
Why did I end up having to chase after someone who was always so far behind me? Why did a damn small fry like you get strong and become the #1 hero's sidekick? His favorite? You got so much better, and I destroyed All Might! I admired him so much. But it's because of me that he ended up losing his power!
Both Midoriya and Bakugo come to the realization that this whole time they had the wrong impression about each other. Bakugo thought Midoriya looked down upon him, when in fact it was the exact opposite. Midoriya looked up to Bakugo and he thought Bakugo was the best.
All Might was my hero, but you were the one actually in my life! You're the best! That's why I want to defeat you!
At the end of this grueling battle, All Might steps in and stops both of them. His speech described everything that these two characters were and how they both epitomized what it meant to be a hero. He shared how these lifelong rivals who never got along were in fact the best when they are with each other. Two separate halves that create an unstoppable force. So what were the two things that All Might used to describe Bakugo and Midoriya?
After being a hero for so many years, you learn a few things. Striving to be the best, like you, young Bakugo. And caring deeply about people, about rescuing those in trouble, like you, young Midoriya. Both of those feelings are necessary in a hero. Otherwise, they'll never truly be able to represent justice. That's why you admire his strength so much, young Midoriya. And I know that's why you've always feared his heart and spirit, young Bakugo. Now that you've laid your feelings out on the table, maybe you can understand each other. If you have mutual respect and focus on making one another stronger, I've no doubt you'll become the ultimate heroes, winning and saving people at the same time.
Helping others in need and always striving to be the best. Always giving your best, becoming the best you can be at your craft, and constantly striving for improvements are the internal signs of a hero. The side we do not see but nevertheless necessary for greatness. The other side is helping others out when they are in need, the external side of heroes that we are all so used to. But the truth is, both are needed, and once combined and mastered, you can become successful in anything you put your mind into. These two things are so ingrained into these characters' philosophies that it is pretty much their persona, what sets them apart from others. Becoming the best and helping out others personified. In Bakugo, we have the bone-chilling determination to be the best. Bakugo will risk everything, anything to be the best. His reputation, his pride, his sanity. He doesn't care what others think of him. He doesn't care if he may be looked as pathetic or as a coward. He will see it to the end no matter the situation. He would put his life on the line if it depended on it. You rarely see this amount of conviction in anyone. When was the last time you ever cared about being that good at something? This raw grittiness and determination is awe-inspiring. In Midoriya, you have someone who's willing to risk it all to do the right thing and help others in need. A true servant of humanity. He will put himself on the line just to help out others, no matter the consequences. This altruistic behavior doesn't even evade him when he's pursuing what matters to him the most. Even if it is a fight, a lifelong goal, or even the limitations of his body and power, it doesn't matter. If someone needs saving, he will be there, whatever the cost. When was the last time you went down an unfavorable path, had an unfavorable result, just so you can make a lasting impact on someone else? The strength of Midoriya's heart and soul is exceptionally powerful and inspirational. A good example of Midoriya would be when he fought Shoto Todoroki in the tournament. Todoroki at this point was on a tear. He was an absolute monster. He never lost to anyone. Midoriya had to face Shoto and beat him. Midoriya, who still couldn't control his quirk, ended up breaking every finger in his hand multiple times just to avoid Todoroki's attack. Midoriya saw Todoroki was clearly distraught on who he was and whether he should use the full extent of his power. Shoto Todoroki has two quirks, hot and cold, ice and fire, and up to this point, he only used ice out of respect for his mother, and denounced his fire quirk since it was his father's, who he clearly despised. Instead of formulating a plan to win, Midoriya wanted to help Todoroki. When he sees someone in pain, it reminds him of himself. He can feel their pain. Midoriya's main goal was to make Shoto accept his quirk as his own. Help him understand that it is not his father's power, but his. It is all up to him to make it whatever he wants it to be. At this time, it would have been the best time to strike Todoroki. Todoroki was clearly distressed in an ongoing identity crisis, and his body was freezing up.
I refuse to use my left side. It's yours! Your quirk, not his!
Finally, Todoroki accepted the power as his, the quirk as his own. Midoriya had his hands full with Todoroki's ice quirk alone. Why would he encourage him to use his fire quirk? Todoroki could have frozen himself and lost, but Midoriya would rather lose than see someone suffer. He gave up all his chances to win, just so he can prevent a friend from burning themselves off from the inside and freezing themselves on the outside. We all should take inspiration and strive for Midoriya's heart and selflessness. A good example of Bakugo was at the Cavalry Battle. The students had to choose a team and steal each other's headbands, and the team with the most points would advance to the next round. Bakugo gets his headband stolen, and even after being outplayed and even insulted, he doesn't get discouraged or even show glimmers of defeat. He unleashes a frenzy of madness, but throughout all that, he is calm. All these emotions would be the nail in the coffin for almost anyone else. Instead, he uses it to fuel the fire inside him. He controls it, and that makes him more dangerous than ever before. Even after retrieving one headband, he decides that's not enough and goes after all the other ones.
Means we're advancing! We're not done! We're gonna be the indisputable champions of the game! We'll get our points back from this idiot! Then go for the big one!
Young Bakugo, you understand something crucial, a truth no one had to teach you. But there's a difference between those who aim for the top and those who will settle. And that difference matters.
Class 1B didn't take into account Bakugo's overwhelming tenacity.
As All Might and Aizawa mentioned, Bakugo doesn't cower in the face of challenges. He doesn't care about just doing enough to get by. He wants to be the best in everything he does, and that is a mentality that will transfer throughout your life. Still, he is not satisfied, and decides to go after Midoriya and Todoroki, the top competitors of the games. Even when coming in second and advancing to the next round, Bakugo is still frustrated and disappointed. Throughout the tournament, Bakugo exhibits similar behaviors. This mentality is what leads him to win the whole tournament, just as he publicly stated he will. But still, he isn't satisfied. He felt he fought and already defeated Todoroki, who was still in his identity crisis after his match with Midoriya. We can all learn a thing or two from the furious Bakugo on how to use this destructive energy, the negative thoughts and feelings, to work for you rather than being a slave to it.
You idiots!
Another important episode will be Season 2, Episode 24, where Bakugo and Midoriya had to team up to face All Might for an exam. Both of these characters showed exactly what they were made of in this battle. It was a battle between the greatest hero in the world and his soon-to-be successors. Bakugo and Midoriya had to team up and face All Might, their idol and teacher. Both these characters never get along, but this time, Bakugo swallowed his pride in order to be victorious. Throughout this exam, they preferred different paths to victory. Bakugo wanted to stand his ground and fight All Might straight up to attain victory, while Midoriya wanted to take the path of least resistance. He thought they should escape the area and run away, which was another way to pass the exam. They ended up compromising. Bakugo even ended up giving Midoriya his gauntlet to launch a surprise attack. Bakugo would do what he hated the most, and work with Midoriya, all in the name of victory. With Bakugo and his pride, he refused to work with Midoriya, but Midoriya reminded him what was most important: victory. Near the end, Bakugo had Midoriya run away while he was occupying All Might. Bakugo would go all out and distract All Might to ensure a victory. Plans aside, Midoriya ended up coming back to fight All Might to save Bakugo from taking any more punishment, and they both ended up escaping. Midoriya ended up escaping with an unconscious Bakugo, and they both passed the exam. All this happened despite these two being what seems like mortal enemies. This, however, was not the first time Midoriya came back to save Bakugo. He would do the same, even as a powerless child. Their actions at the end of the exam were the exact opposite of what both of them wanted at the start. Bakugo at the start wanted to fight All Might directly and defeat him decisively in combat. Later, after a few beatings, he decided to let Midoriya leave in order to obtain victory. Midoriya, who wanted to run away at the start, ended up returning and fighting All Might at the end, which was the last thing he wanted to do. Both characters stuck to their word in what they wanted to do, with Midoriya eventually escaping and Bakugo standing his ground. But all this came with compromising to each other's plans and ideologies. This shows an interesting dynamic between these two. They both are the exact opposite of each other, and because of that, they make the perfect team. Picking up each other's weaknesses with their own strengths and pushing each other in scenarios they never would have imagined they would be in. In fact, the only reason these two succeeded were because Bakugo wanted to win no matter what, and Midoriya wanted to save Bakugo at the end. When the going got tough, these were the two qualities that shined for both of these characters. That is how the two young heroes defeated and outwitted their idol All Might.
I will win the way I want to. I'll destroy myself before I accept defeat at your hands. You got that!
Kachan! Please get out of the way! Move, All Might!
So to summarize, Midoriya will focus more on rescuing, while sacrificing winning and being the best. While Bakugo focuses more on victory, being the best, while ignoring the care of the people. In the fight between Midoriya and Bakugo, Midoriya mentioned something really important.
I'd never admit something like this to your face, but the truth is... Can't you see? That's why I want to beat you! Because you're amazing! When I get riled up and my desire to win surpasses my desire to save someone, without meaning to, I start talking like you. You're so mean sometimes, and I hate it. But my idea of victory is so tied to the image of you in my head, that in those moments I can't help but imitate you.
Just like that, you can imitate both Bakugo and Midoriya. You can use their character, their strengths, their ideologies, and incorporate it into your own life. Whenever you are lacking in either side, think to yourself, What would Midoriya do in this situation? What would Bakugo do in this situation? How would they respond when the going gets tough? That said, check yourself. Really think about who you are. What side do you fit with more, Bakugo or Midoriya? Maybe you're a bit of both, or maybe you're neither of them. Or maybe you're like this guy. In all seriousness, think about how you act and think. Who are you more similar to? Whoever you are, I believe you can learn a thing or two regarding character from these young heroes. If you're lacking heart and empathy, you may want to think of young Midoriya. Think to yourself, what would Midoriya strive to do? What would Midoriya like to instill in the minds of his comrades? What is the most important thing to Midoriya? If you lack conviction, grittiness, and raw drive, then maybe think of young Bakugo. Think of what drives him and how he strives to be the best in everything. What will Bakugo do in a situation when he is behind and losing? What would he do when he loses? Would he cower in the face of a challenge? Midoriya admires Bakugo's strength. Chances are you will too if you are like Midoriya. Bakugo is intimidated by Midoriya's heart and spirit. If you're like Bakugo, you will feel the same about Midoriya's never-ending drive to help others. That said, you can learn a lot from the characters you are similar to as well. Both have their flaws. Bakugo can be emotionally unstable, and the same goes with Midoriya. Bakugo cannot control his anger and has egotistical issues, whereas Midoriya often overthinks, cannot control his feelings, and has self-esteem problems. Both have their share of negative thoughts. Be sure not to adopt their flaws, but rather their strengths. Combining these two and learning from both archetypes, and using each persona when needed. Being the best and helping others relate back to another. It is ironic how, without the other side, you can only get so far. There comes a time where you need to implement both sides of the coin for you to get the highest result. They have a positive relationship with each other. They are synergistic. Sort of like Bakugo and Midoriya. Together, they push each other to become stronger, better in every way possible. You can become the best you can be by yourself. But when you help others and work with them, you can find that the same people can push you to a level you could never reach alone. In essence, you are helping others become better, and in turn, they do the same with you because their competencies are much higher. If Midoriya and Bakugo trained without each other, would they become as great as they are now? No, because iron sharpens iron, and this is the same case. Moreover, if you are not striving to be the best, there is no way you will be able to help everyone. You will fall short in plenty of areas that you never would have if you always work towards becoming the best you can be. To be the best, you need to help others because in turn they will make you better. And to help others, you need to always strive to be the best because you won't be able to help everyone if you're not at your best. Those are the two golden rules to becoming a hero. And you too can learn from these archetypes. When the time is right, become the brash and bold Bakugo. When the time is right, manifest Midoriya's heart and soul. When the time is right, become the big bad Bakugo. Unleash his raw unfiltered pride and fury. When the time is right, take on the magnificent mind of Midoriya. Showcase your resilient spirit and become the people's champion. Combine both and accomplish the feats worthy of a true hero.
Ugh.